thank you all for being here. We are here for a very important reason because, as we all know, congestion pricing is coming to New York. You see the infrastructure right behind us as we're talking about this. And the one thing we've learned from seeing the other cities around the world that have done this is if you want it to work right, if you want to get people out of their cars, you've got to give them a viable alternative. And what we need to do is make sure the bus system, which is the slowest in the world right now, and not something people think about that they want to get onto, much better. We took some great steps last year. We set up a free bus pilot program, one per borough. It has been a smashing success. Ridership has increased over 20% on those lines. And what we're trying to do now is expand on that and provide better service and reliability on the other routes throughout the city. What does that mean? It means we're calling for an additional $90 million in this year's state budget for the MTA. $45 million to triple the amount of free buses that we have throughout the city. Right now there's one per borough. This would make it 3 per borough. And the other $45 million would go towards improving service on all the other lines, whether it's local, express, or otherwise. Increased reliability, more frequent service, so that it actually is something people would want to do when they think about the fact that they don't want to pay to drive into the business districts of New York. Assemblymember Zoran Mamdani and I have been on this cause for the last couple of years, so we're really proud we got the first steps done last year. Now we got to continue the job and get congestion pricing right. It has been quite an ordeal to get to this point, as everybody knows. And the last thing we want is for it not to succeed and to be a failure. So let's do it right. Let's get people out of their cars. Let's give them somewhere to go in public transit. And that's what this is all about today. We have a number of colleagues who are going to speak, as well as some great advocates who have been fighting on this issue for a long time. But first, I'm going to bring up Assemblymember Zoran Mamdani, my colleague in Astoria, who is going to MC the rest of the program.
Yay.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zoran Mamdani. As Senator Gianaris said, I represent parts of Astoria and Long Island City, and I will be introducing this legislation in the Assembly to get congestion pricing right. What Senator Gianaris has said is exactly the case, which is that for many years, the promise of congestion pricing was that it would fundamentally transform our public transit system in New York City and the relationship of New Yorkers to that public transit system. But right now we are just a few months away from the implementation of congestion pricing, and we are staring at a public transit system that looks very much like the one that we had a few months ago. And what we need now is not just to highlight the additional capacity on the trains and the buses that could absorb additional riders. We need better service, more reliable service, more affordable service. This proposal is a proposal for every New Yorker who sits on buses that go 8 miles an hour, the slowest in the country. This proposal is for every New Yorker who drives into Midtown and downtown Manhattan from the outer boroughs and thinks that their express bus just isn't frequent or reliable enough. But if it was, they would maybe take it. This proposal is for New Yorkers who know they live in a world-class city and they deserve a world-class transit system. And this is also a proposal that says, what has worked for the rest of the world will work in our city. Too often in New York City, we suffer from an exceptionalism that believes that which applies elsewhere does not apply here. In London, when they implemented congestion pricing, they increased bus service by 17%. In Stockholm, when they implemented congestion pricing, they increased bus service there as well. We have spoken with the MTA. We know what we are proposing is money that can be absorbed so that we can ensure your bus comes when it should, and that your bus comes more frequently than you expect it to come today, and that for the New Yorkers who are being priced out of our city bit by bit, that there will be more routes where they can simply get on the bus and have that $2.90 they would pay be $2.90 they can put towards their groceries, their rent, their Con Ed bills. We've known that all of these things have either worked elsewhere or here, and now it's time to put them together to ensure that we get congestion pricing right. And so for New Yorkers who are passionate about this, they should go to getcongestionpricinglight.com and let their legislators know that this is the opportunity for us to ensure that better service, more reliable service, and more affordable service is on the way, and that the first day you pay the toll is also the first day you get on a bus that is not like the one you knew before. Thank you very much.
Before we continue, I just assumed everybody knew who I was, but I want to introduce myself. I'm Senator Michael Gianaris, Deputy Leader of the New York State Senate.
Some of us have to introduce ourselves, others. So, we are here on 61st Street in Central Park West. and that is in the district of Assemblymember Tony Simone, and I'm so proud to have him here with us today. Please welcome Assemblymember Simone.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to the leader, Mike Gianaris, and to my great colleagues, Zoran Mondani and Jessica Gonzalez Rojas from Queens, where I was born.
Yes.
But welcome to my district on this beautiful day. It's a beautiful day that we're going to have congestion pricing so we can lessen the use of cars in the district. We need less cars and more public transit. But to back up with what my colleagues have said is, I love getting on a bus. When it's hot out there or freezing, I love to jump on the bus. What I don't like is when I'm waiting for the M11 and it doesn't come. Or when I'm on the bus and I'm with seniors and folks and my constituents and the bus moves at a snail's pace. So we need more buses, and we need the $90 million in the budget, $45 million for more free transit and buses for our constituents, for many of the working class. I'm also for a residential exemption in my district because most of the folks in my district don't own cars, and the ones that do use it to leave the district for work, and the disabled parents and the elderly. It may cost a little more on the congestion pricing, but in the long run we need less cars and a better transit system. So we have to put the $90 million in a $275+ billion budget. It's pennies. We need more buses. We need rapid buses. We need more public transit. It's a public good. It helps the working class and all of our constituents get around, and we need them more frequently, more frequent service, which I know my colleagues have been fighting from day one. So I welcome congestion pricing, but we still have to do a little more work, Jano and the MTA, to ensure that we have more buses on our streets. And I can't wait to get on the bus and not be stuck forever going from 42nd Street to 47th Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Simone. And we know in the Assembly that the fight for more frequent service, whether it be on trains, whether it be on buses, is a fight that has been championed by Assemblywoman Jessica Gonzalez Rojas from Jackson Heights, as well as parts of Astoria. And we're so thankful to have her here today. Please welcome Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
Thank you all for being here on this lovely day in your district. Thanks for welcoming us. I'm so proud to stand alongside my colleague in the Assembly, Mondani, and the Deputy Majority Leader, also from Queens. Queens is representing here today. And I stand before you as someone that does not own a car. I am advocating for the very system that I take every single day. I'm also advocating here as someone who has been hit by a car. And thankfully I just broke my arm, but many families don't come home. So congestion pricing is not about making sure that people can pay the toll. It is about making sure people are getting out of their cars and getting on buses and trains. And our fight for faster service is necessary to make sure that people get out of their cars and get on buses and trains. I've long been an advocate for faster buses and faster trains, and I was so thrilled to partner with my friends here on the Fix the MTA campaign to make sure that we invested money. This is about investment to increase frequency on our subways. So we are getting there, and we'll continue to push for that frequency. However, our buses are too slow still. And this issue is about public safety. This issue is about environmental justice, and this issue is about faster commutes. So, Jano Lieber, MTA, we are here to support this effort. We want to make sure that we're getting our folks on the very system that this city deserves, and we are here to fight in the state assembly and in the state senate to get that done. So thank you to my colleagues, and let's make sure that we get folks out of their cars, into the buses, into the trains, but improve the reliability and the frequency of that service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Lest you think I'm the only member of the Senate here, we have the senator who represents this part of New York, and is a great champion for public transit as well, Senator Brad Holman-Siegel.
Thank you, Senator Gianaris. Thank you to my colleague, Senator Gianaris, who I like to refer to as the deputy leader for free bus service in the New York State Senate. I'm State Senator Brad Holman-Siegel. I represent the neighborhoods from Christopher Street on the west side all the way up to West 103, or as we like to say, from the gay bars to Zay bars. He knows it all too well. I'm here to say that we need to support this $90 million infusion into free buses and better service, because this is a sales pitch to our colleagues, many of whom are getting cold feet on the issue of congestion pricing. Our colleagues and their constituents, particularly in boroughs outside of Manhattan, are concerned that they're not going to see the benefits from congestion pricing anytime soon. And that is creating pushback, and that is leading to lawsuits, and that is leading to potentially undermining the congestion pricing plan, which we know is so needed to make certain that we have the capital improvements in the MTA. So this plan will in fact make that very apparent to all of our colleagues, both houses and even at the city council, members of organized labor, small businesses, folks who live above 60th Street who are concerned about people leaving their cars and then taking the subway and cluttering the neighborhood with parking spaces that are used. It's so important that we send a message in this year's budget that congestion pricing is not only happening, but it's going to benefit every New Yorker this year. Thank you very much, Senator DeGeneres. Thank you, Assembly members. Very proud to be here.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Hoylman-Siegel. And we know that there are voices in the Assembly and in the Senate who have been championing the cause of public transit, but what we do is to hear the cries and the demands that come from outside of our chambers, and the leaders of those demands who have been fighting for working class New Yorkers are Riders Alliance. So please join me in welcoming Riders Alliance and Derek Holmes.
Hey, thank you. So first off, I want to thank the Assembly member and all the elected leaders here today for always being such strong, unapologetic champions for transit riders throughout the city and throughout the state of New York. I want to be real for a second. Some people need to hear this. Congestion pricing is happening. Riders fought for it for years. Riders won it. We are past debating the merits of the program. It is the law. Okay. And with that in mind, I'm asking us for one moment to take our minds off of focusing on that set in stone fact and start focusing on what it is we're going to do with this once in a generation opportunity to reassess and reprioritize our public realm to make the most of this moment and realize the truly transformative potential of congestion pricing. Outside of the obvious benefits being less cars in everyone's way, more money to expand and modernize our public transit system. And this all begs the question, what are we going to do once congestion is slashed in Manhattan? What are we going to do with streets that now have more space for people, more space for businesses to thrive, more space for our buses, who are still the slowest in the nation, and our emergency vehicles to get where they need to go unimpeded by endless gridlock traffic? Right now, the Assembly member is proposing that we take this golden opportunity and we run with it. First off, by investing $45 million for more frequent, reliable bus service, and another $45 million for expanding the overwhelming success of the MTA's 5-route free bus pilot. And while this is all an absolute no-brainer that will surely result in hundreds of thousands of riders having more reliable service, funding more bus service can only go so far without the support of our mayor, who controls our city's DOT and therefore controls the streets that our buses are riding on. With Mayor Adams right now so far behind the mandate of the New York City Streets Plan to build new bus lanes throughout the city, the reality is all of the funding in the world won't get our buses moving like they should. They won't allow emergency vehicles to save precious time when every second counts, and they won't allow us to see through the awesome promise of what riders have won with congestion pricing. Getting congestion pricing right means taking this opportunity to get our buses right. And the only way for us to do that is to invest in frequent, reliable, affordable service and to put transit riders first on our streets. And not just south of 60th Street, but we're talking across the entire city in every borough, from Fordham Road to Flatbush Avenue to Northern Boulevard. And to that end, we at Riders Alliance, we would love nothing more than for our mayor to join us, to join Assemblymember Mondani and all the elected leaders here today, and to join the millions of riders who are counting on him to do his part to make sure that everyone can get the most out of congestion pricing and afford every New Yorker the right to reliable bus service, no matter if they're traveling to, from, within, around, or nowhere near the CBD. And all of that said, we couldn't be more excited to be standing here in lockstep with elected leaders like the Assembly member that understand the urgency of taking bold action to bring our streets, public spaces, and transit system into the 21st century. And we can't wait to see what it is we're going to do with this history-making moment for the future of our city. Thank you. Derek Holmes, DERRICKHOLMES.
And as we are here, before we close out and open for questions, it's important that we also talk about the importance of accountability. And in Albany, we fight to ensure that there is enough funding to achieve the goals of the MTA and also to hold the MTA accountable to the promises that it makes of what it will do with that funding. And there is no greater body of oversight and accountability than the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. So please join me in welcoming Kara Girl to speak with us for a few moments.
Thank you. Thank you, Assembly Member, and thank you to all the elected leaders here today fighting for riders in the state legislature. As congestion pricing begins, which cannot start soon enough, New Yorkers want to know that they'll see benefits on day one. Around the world, cities have improved transit even before congestion pricing begins, and New York should do the same. That means speeding up buses around the 5 boroughs so riders can get where they need to go without driving. New York currently has the slowest buses in the nation, slower than a chicken can run. There's no better way to get drivers out of cars and onto buses and trains than making transit more reliable, affordable, and accessible. We already know that congestion pricing will bring riders better transit infrastructure, less traffic, and cleaner air. Coupled with tangible investments in better bus service, even more New Yorkers will feel the benefits of the critical law, congestion pricing, whose time has finally come. Let's show riders that congestion pricing will really speed up their commutes by giving them the better buses that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I just want to acknowledge that this builds on the successes of last year of Fix the MTA, a campaign that was championed and led in the Senate by Deputy Majority Leader Michael Gianaris, and a campaign that we've seen and we've talked about. Yes, we introduced and fought for it in the Assembly, but we also have to acknowledge the leadership of our Speaker in the Assembly, Carl Hastie, who made this a priority in last year's budget on our side and ensured that today 45,000 New Yorkers are getting on a fare-free bus ride across all of the 5 boroughs. So now we'd like to open it up for questions in case there are any. Please to start.
2 questions. The first question is, Derek just made a point that seems to undercut your argument for funding. If you're one of your colleagues in Albany right now, and you're aware that pumping millions of dollars won't speed up the buses because there aren't enough bus lanes, why should they authorize that funding?
So this is a figure that we came to with the MTA, asking them, given the incompetence of Adams's mayoral administration with regards to bus lanes, how much money could actually be absorbed? Because what we don't want is to spend money that will just lead to buses being bunched in traffic. This is the amount of money that they said will get us to the maximum point of service given the mayor's violation of the law.
And then the second question is, aren't you too late? You're 4 months away from this being switched on. Even if you get the money, even if you increase service, even if you do all of this stuff, that gantry is going to be switched on, and on day one, the buses will not have been.
So I think we're actually at the perfect time, right? We are on the precipice of the state budget, and it is in that budget that we could secure this $90 million. And the point around bus services is the MTA has said, you give us this money, we can make this happen on an immediate level, right? This is not something that will require capital improvements. This is about thinking of the existing stock, the existing network. What would it mean to have more reliable buses, more frequent buses? That's something we think that when congestion pricing comes online in June, we could have this come online too. It's just a question of securing the funds.
I also address that. 2 things about that, Andrew. One is half of this money is for affordability, right? It's for more free bus routes. That can happen regardless of additional bus lanes. The second thing is we just bailed out the MTA last year. So we got them hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to fill a budget hole that they had. And so now we're turning to increasing service as it relates to the implementation of congestion pricing. As the Assembly member mentioned, it can be done. This was specifically crafted with the MTA in consultation, so we would be allocating dollars that they think they can use right away.
Right, sorry, I just want to add one point. Last year we fought for direct funding for increased frequency, and between July and August of 2023, which was just a mere few months after the budget was passed, the G, the J, the M trains increased frequency by 2 minutes on weekends, the C, the N, the R by 2 minutes on weekdays, the 1 and the 6 trains with 6 minutes service on weekends. So we saw the infusion of money help us very immediately. And by this summer, it's estimated that we'll improve the B, the D, the J, the M lines to be every 8 minutes, and the 3 and 5 lines to be every 10 minutes by cutting wait time by 2 minutes. And we know those 2 minutes feel like an eternity when you're waiting for a train. So the infusion of money can be directly impactful for our riders. Thank you.
We have a number of people with questions, so we're going to start over here, and then we're going to go over to you.
So my question to both of you is this. is this campaign, this money, going to include a campaign to try to get the mayor to make faster bus lanes and to, as you say, obey the law? Because if you don't get the mayor to do express bus lanes and move buses faster, you can add 82 new buses, but they're not going to move any faster. So what are you going to do to get the mayor to comply to make the buses able to move faster?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is we have to hold the mayor accountable at every opportunity. The mayor came to Albany 2 days ago, and I used part of my 3 minutes to ask him specifically around the bus lanes, because he believes that he's above the law when it comes to buses. He believes that he's above the concerns of the more than 1.4 million New Yorkers who rely on the bus every single day. But just to restate, the MTA has said, yes, bus lanes would radically transform our city and the speed of our buses. However, this money that we could invest, this would still have an impact even with the mayor continuing to violate the law.
Do you have the ability to hold him hostage, is a bad word, but hold him hostage in terms of the budget money that he's asking for in other areas and say we're going to withhold things like money for migrants, mayoral control of schools, and all the things that he came to Albany asking for in order for you to get the kind of cooperation in terms of getting congestion pricing?
The important thing to remember, Marcia, is we would not be holding the mayor hostage, we'd be holding the people of the city hostage. So we're not looking to deny funds for critical needs that residents of the city have in order to get them to comply with the mandate on the buses. There's things the city can and should and is required to be doing, and there's things that we can do at the state level. This funding that we're talking about today has been developed in consultation with the MTA, telling us this is, aside from that conversation, they can put this money to use right now with the existing infrastructure they have, and that would benefit all riders. If part of this conversation increases the pressure on the city to do what they're supposed to be doing, all the better.
So do you want to make a call, a plea to the mayor to cooperate with you to try to get congestion pricing off the ground in the best way possible?
Of course. I think, look, it has been hard fought for many years to get us to this point where we're looking at the infrastructure that's going to implement a program that many of us believe will improve the environment and reduce congestion in the busiest parts of Manhattan. We all need to do what we can now to make sure it's successful. That's what we're doing here today. The city has an obligation to do whatever it can do to make sure that when these tolls are turned on, for lack of a better word, that the infrastructure is in place to get people out of their cars and moving through the city much faster. Did you have something?
Thank you. Yes, just two questions following on from the timing. So the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee speaker said that riders want to see results from day one, and Assemblymember, you said now is the right time to be asking for this money. However, buying buses typically takes years, and to train and certify drivers takes months. So how do you expect this to have an impact by the time that the congestion charge takes place in what is only a couple of weeks?
So to be clear, this is an investment that could be made with the MTA's existing stock of buses, existing number of operators. This is about ensuring that we put more money to ensure more buses are running, buses we already have, but also the reliability piece is critical here. Right now there are a number of buses which are under budgeted for the time they actually take to get from point A to point Z. It requires more money to accurately budget for that true runtime, because that money will be used to pay for the operator who's there, for the fuel that is taken, and it's money that, if we're being realistic, is already being spent, but in overtime in ways that we actually need to apportion today. If we put this money there, then it means that for a bus driver who sits in their seat, they're not already late on their schedule. They're actually on a schedule that is realistic. And then for the rider who is standing in Astoria, waiting for the M60 to take them into Harlem and then the Upper West Side, they can look at the scheduled bus time and they can believe it. Because we're here to say that if we want New Yorkers to trust the times that public transit tells them, then we have to put the money behind that public transit to ensure that we can deliver that promise. The promise of the time on the countdown board, the promise of congestion pricing. And so that's what we're here to do. We're here to deliver the promise.
So it keeps more buses running for longer?
Yes, it puts more buses on the road, and it ensures that we have more accurate times of when the bus will actually be there.
I see. Secondly, Senator, why didn't lawmakers who approved the congestion pricing program 4 years ago include funding at the time for the MTA to boost bus services?
Well, we should have, to be honest. I think the MTA has been grossly underfunded for decades. That's part of why last year we had success in bailing them out and filling their budget hole. Should have been done sooner. We're doing it as fast as we can now. And I think a big part of that to be perfectly honest, is that when Senator Homan Siegel and myself finally got to the majority, we were able to change the priorities of the state Senate and therefore the entire state government to focus more on mass transit, because the previous majority didn't give a lick about mass transit in New York City.
Yeah, one second.
Look, I just want to add something. I mean, it's really simple. In other cities, when they added congestion pricing, they added increased bus service and subway service, those who have subways. It's very simple. It doesn't take that long to do this. I mean, it's an issue, as Jessica said, of social justice, right? And fighting climate crisis. Get less cars off the street. Look, I live on 37th and 10th over the tunnel. You constantly see cars backed up for nothing, waiting. People from Jersey, folks who decided they don't want to take the transit they have, and now congestion pricing may be a disincentive for them to take their car into the city, and buses stuck, existing buses, because there's too many cars. We need less cars on the west side of Manhattan, and we need more buses. It's very simple, and this will start to do that. It's not rocket science. We need to get to a city where you can take a train from the end of Queens to my apartment. A bus and a speed lane from one end of the borough to the others, so you don't have to rely on a car, especially if you can't afford a car or you're the working poor. It's about helping every New Yorker and have a massive, amazing transportation system.
Dave.
So I'm curious, have the conversations around this bill been about, and the legislation itself, do they require the money to be spent on specific bus routes? Do they in specific areas of the city? Is this something about getting more buses into the city? Is it about getting buses going around in the outer boroughs? Or is it just kind of up to the MTA to put the money where they think it would work best?
So we provide clear guidelines, and we're going to be releasing our legislation next week, where we talk about the prioritization of express buses from outer boroughs into the central business district of Manhattan. We talk about the prioritization of buses that can get you onto the subway, of buses that are doing interborough travel. And this is very true. And I think that, when we're thinking about how does the MTA select fare-free routes, we put guardrails into last year's budget language that spoke about the prioritization of lower income riders who are going to commercial thoroughfares, job opportunities, and medical appointments, because we'd seen statistics in other cities in America that free buses could be the key to unlock job opportunities and healthcare appointments for so many who are being priced out of those things. So there are those clear guidelines for the MTA. The exact language will be released next week, but we know that we need this to be transformative for all New Yorkers, and that's why we're proposing an amount of money that would do so across local, select, and express bus lines, as well as fare-free routes.
Can you just take a look at the big picture for a moment? It seems that with all of the lawsuits that have been filed against congestion pricing, the opposition, it seems that the goalpost is being moved farther down the field every day. Are you guys discouraged by that?
In terms of timing, you mean? Or
Well, in terms of having congestion pricing anytime soon.
Well, it's coming. And I would have agreed with you a year or 2 or 3 years ago, but now we know that it's coming. Federal approval isn't granted, the infrastructure is going up, so we're just a matter of months now from this going into effect. Now what we need to do is make sure that everything surrounding this concept is done right, so that when we tell people get out of your cars when you're driving into Manhattan, they have somewhere to go. And this today is about making sure that they have a good, reliable bus service to go to.
And if I could just add, we're following those lawsuits very closely. In fact, we filed an objection in New Jersey with the chief judge of the district court there, making the judge who had a conflict with Governor Murphy to recuse himself. And now I think we have a judge who is going to be fair and unbiased in deciding the congestion pricing suit across the river. I will say I'm open to adding the Trump International Hotel in the congestion pricing zone. I don't know about you guys.
At the moment, how would you describe the options in terms of express bus service coming from neighborhoods where you don't have immediate access to the subway? Unattractive? What's a word for it?
I think it's insufficient, right? We have a moment where express buses are right now around 35% capacity filled on these buses on average. And there's an idea that New Yorkers will see the 65% of seats that are open and say, well, I could sit there. But New Yorkers want a better deal in order to change their minds about what they should do. we need to make sure that the express buses that are already taking New Yorkers from outer boroughs into Manhattan, that they're running more frequently, that they're more reliable, because we don't want the first day of this program to be understood as just a tolling mechanism. This program is also about getting New Yorkers, as Assemblywoman Gonzalez-Rojas said, out of their cars and onto public transit. And so for that New Yorker who lives in Bay Ridge, if they are thinking, should I pay $15, or now there's a bus coming, an additional bus coming every 10, 20, 30 minutes during peak hours, should I just take that bus, spend half the amount of money I would on the toll, not have to pay parking, and get right to my job? We need to make this the rational choice for that New Yorker, and the rational choice for the New Yorker who already has no other option to the bus.
Let me add to that too. Right now, the bus system in New York City is a system of last resort for people. People get on the bus because they don't have any other option, not because they choose to. They either don't have cars, there's no subway service nearby, what have you. We're here to say we need to make the buses a first option for people. Okay, make it something people want to get on because it works, because it comes when they tell you it's going to come, because it gets you where you're going faster than any other way, and it's more affordable. That's what today's about.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I've been.
Sorry, if we can just go
I've
to.
been greedy. Go.
I thought I heard somebody over there. No, okay.
Just
go be greedy.
Senator Gianaris, did you say that ridership on the fare-free bus pilot program has gone up 20%?
I did.
So are the results in on that?
When we last got the update from the MTA, that's what we were told, and that's been publicly reported at this point. So yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.